Okay, councillors, we'll open the meeting, Finance Committee meeting, 27th of April 2021. Welcome everybody and welcome to our community that may be coming in on Zoom. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri and Gundungurra people and respects the history and culture of elders both past and present. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with social distancing requirements, the 27th April 2021 Finance Committee meeting will have limited access for members of the public to attend. The meeting will be live streamed via Zoom webinar facilities and a link will be available via the council website. Recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused or transmitted without the prior consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on council's website, and persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statements. We have one apology this morning, this evening, councillors, from Councillor Gibbons. Page 5, councillors, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? I have a declaration in confidential in the 356 donations. I sit on one of the committees that have applied for funding. Confirmation of minutes. Minutes of the Works Committee meeting held on the 5th of May 2020 to follow. Works. Finance Committee, I think there.
That's, I was going to raise that.
Minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 5th of May 2025. The minutes were accepted by Council at its ordinary Council meeting held on the 19th of May. Can I have someone to move those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Kellam and Councillor Doney. Any business arising, councillors? No business arising. Look at the recommendation. The minutes be accepted. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 12, councillors, reports. Item 0501, mayoral and council fees 2021-22. There's a recommendation that council resolve to accept the determination when set by the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal for the 2021-22 financial year for the mayoral and councillor fee in the 2021-22 operational plan. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kellam, and a seconder, Councillor Kate. Thank you. Councillor Kellam, do you wish to speak to this?
So this is consistent with normal practice. The part determination on person.
Thank you. Councillor Cable, do you wish to speak to this? Anyone speaking against this, councillor? McKibben.
Thank you, Madam. I'm not speaking against it, but I just, on the basis that operational plan is based on a maximum of 0.9% increase, I believe. I'm just wondering whether we should be resolving this on the basis of what's been said, but up to a maximum of 0.9%, so that we don't dislocate our operational plan if the fee increase is over and above that. We don't anticipate it's going to be over and above that, I understand, but if it does go over that, then it will put our operational plan. It won't be correct. It won't be correct.
I understand what you're saying. Do you want to amend that recommendation?
Well, I put an amendment to say.
Because I don't think you can go above the recommended.
Through the mayor, if I could, the average of the recommendation by the tribunal is normally around 2%.
Are you saying that it could go to 2%?
It could go to 2%. I don't know. I'm just saying the average for the last 5 years is 2%.
And we're basing this on the
Point
CPI 0.9.
0.9.
So look, if we can have an amendment here to cap it at 0.9. Need that to be raised.
I would ask that. I'm not necessarily saying. Well, if I can discuss it before I propose the amendment, is that my concern is that we put an operational plan out to the community based on 0.9%. It's accepted by the community. Then come the remuneration tribunal comes back and says, right, increase in 2%. Then it immediately puts a critical underlying assumption for the operational plan at risk for it. It's no longer a correct assumption, and I'm not sure of the magnitude of the change it will have. I haven't done that, but I'm sure that the Director of Corporate Services might be able to enlighten us as to how much that change would be. So if it was let's say at worst it was 2% instead of 0.9%, how much would that affect the underlying amount in our operation? If I could ask that question before we go to the amendment.
And bear in mind, councillors, that this operational plan is a draft. It will go out for public exhibition and it can then be amended when it comes back for resolution to council. And by then we should know.
Oh, we should know.
What that, we definitely should know what that percentage will be, recommended percentage will be.
Could I ask what the quantum it was like within the vicinity of? I'm assuming if we double the 0.9% increase for this year to next year, it'll be somewhere around about close to it.
So would you just take 2% of the total turnover? How do you want that estimated? 27 million, 2% of that?
It will probably be through the chair, probably be around
It's not
15,000.
15,000 is what I thought. Yeah, 20,000, 15 to 20,000.
At 2%.
At 2%.
Yeah.
And roughly half of that at 9.9%. That's correct.
Or is it 15 or 20% over and above the 0.9% already calculated?
No, it'll be $15,000 to $20,000 if we raise it to the 2%.
So currently we're putting in about 7,500 to 9,000 somewhere for the 0.9%.
For the 0.9, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're looking at a delta, if I can use that term, of about 11,000 max.
Yes, it'd be rough.
Okay, well, it's not talking a
Huge.
sheep station, if I can use that
And
expression.
it can be.
All right, I'm happy that we
back.
go as we are.
Yep.
On the basis it's likely we'll have the remuneration tribunal's determination before we actually have to approve this finally.
Yep.
And we're only going out draft. So I won't push for an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Is it? Councillor Cole?
Just for the benefit of council, the much more relevant figure is going to be the superannuation in July next year.
That won't affect this budget.
It won't,
No, it won't affect this
sorry,
budget.
you're right.
It won't affect it this budget.
Will that be 22, 23?
Yeah. If that comes in at all. Any other comments, councillor? You're right, councillor Claypool. I'll put that recommendation in, councillors. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 13, councillors, item 502, integrated planning and reporting. Yeah, I'll do that. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, through the chair, councillors, there is a recommendation there. If I could draw your attention to item 4, where we have the numbers 4A, 4B and 4C. If councillors replace that with 4, 5 and 6, and in 5, it's attachment 7. It was just a change in how we put the appendixes together to make them easier to read.
So the recommendation is that council adopt the draft 2021-22 operational plan and long-term financial plan at attachment 1 and resolve to publicly exhibit the plans for 28 days in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993. Submissions received during public exhibition period will be considered and presented to the June Ordinary Council meeting prior to final adoption. That council adopt and resolve to publicly exhibit the Statement of Revenue Policy at attachment 2, which includes the 2021-22 fees and charges and rating structure outlined within report 0502 in accordance with chapter 15, part 1 of the Local Government Act 1993. That council notes the 2019-22 delivery program at attachment 3, which has been updated with financial data for the 21-22 and 22-23 financial years in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993. That council note the water and sewer asset building and infrastructure asset management plans at attachments 4, 5 and 6 in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993. That council note the 2019 22 Workforce Management Plan at Attachment 7 in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993. That council note that the draft 2021-22 operational plan and long-term financial plan has been prepared in line with the objectives contained in council's community strategic plan and the integrated planning and reporting requirements within the Local Government Act 1993. That council note the long-term financial plan will be amended annually as more accurate information comes to hand. Income and expenditure forecasts become more accurate, and council will consider and utilise a range of options for achieving balanced budgets over the life of the long-term financial plan, including but not limited to realising efficiencies and cost reductions within council operations, applying reserve funds, reducing or rescheduling capital expenditure, and increasing revenue through possible borrowings to fund specific programs and initiatives. That council authorises the general manager to make any necessary editorial and content changes to integrated planning and reporting documentation for public exhibition in order to give effect to council's resolutions. Can I have a mover for those 8 recommendations, please? Councillor Kellam, and a second, please. Councillor McKibben. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Kellam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd first like to recognise the enormous amount of work that the Corporate Services Director and her staff have put in to produce this plan. I know how difficult that sort of detailed work can be. I have been through it fairly closely. I note there are a number of assumptions that are made in terms of the expenditure and income we will have. And although I don't necessarily agree with all the assumptions, this is a draft plan and it will be amended by community input and will be amended by council input as well. But I think it is a reasonable document to go forward with, and I look forward to some robust discussion on this issue.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKibben.
Yes, I also note that a considerable amount of work's been undertaken to produce this document. I have a number of questions in relation to a couple of documents. I'm not sure whether you'd like me to ask those now, Madam Mayor, or whether you'd like other people to speak first and come back
No,
to me
you're
on
on the
it.
floor, Councillor.
So if I could go to page 3.
Sorry,
The
sir.
attachments.
The attachments. Sorry, page 3 of the attachments. Sorry. If I could, through you, Madam Mayor, I would like, obviously from 2020-21 forecast, 2021-22 forecast, there have been some quite marked increases in expenses. I think some of them have been explained, but I think if I could ask through you, Madam Mayor, going from the top down, about a third of the page down under expenses from continuing operations, the administration expenses are looking to go into 2021-22 from 86,000 currently for this year. I'm using whole numbers if that's appropriate, to 159,000. Could I ask, I don't believe that's fully explained, if I could ask the Director of Corporate Services to explain the increase, because it's nearly double.
Can I just mention that some of
them are explained in the notes.
some of these comparisons between 21 and 22 will all be explained by the director under one, let's say, banner.
So through the chair, I'll go down. Yep.
If you could go down. Sorry, I'm happy with
That's
that.
fine.
Yep.
I was going to ask individually, but I'm quite happy for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So through you, Madam Mayor, a lot of these figures have been consolidated. So they weren't all under other expenses. They were dispersed throughout the program, and we've done quite an extensive review of our GL, and we have now grouped them together. Hence why there is a substantial difference in a lot of these numbers, such as the administration, as well as the advertising, There's also a increase of the 356 assistance program. This is just the income, the cash component, not the in-kind component, because that is dispersed through other areas of the operational plan. The debt collection we have reduced substantially because we have made very good inroads into our debt recovery with the new debt recovery process that we have, and we've been very successful this year in doing that. We're hoping that the final figures reflect that in our recovery, hence why we've reduced it. IT hardware includes new council, so we have to purchase a new hardware for each of the new councillors that come on board in September, so that's included in that price. That's hence why it's increased substantially, as well as a little bit of hardware in there for the new EMS program that we go to will enable outdoor staff to use and operate devices in the field. So there's a little bit of that in there. The IT software has increased substantially, one, because we've amalgamated them all from the different areas, but also there is 200,000 in there for the EMS program rollout. Legal costs we have reduced substantially because we knew that we had some legals last year, and this year there is no foreseen legal implications, so hence why we've reduced that substantially.
I misunderstood that. That's because we don't have the Canadian rules.
The subscriptions and memberships is a big one, and that was because it was spread throughout, and we were quite surprised, and we triple checked that one because we knew that it was quite substantial, but it is only a consolidation. Sundry expenses we have reduced because we are encouraging with the new GL restructure that we're rolling out, there won't be as many sundry expenses now. They will actually be allocated correctly. Telephone and communications, we are implementing with the new EMS rollout. There will be new programs, and so we haven't spent as much as we expected to, and therefore we're not budgeting as much this year. The Upper Macquarie is the standard increase, as is utilities. Vehicle registration, it is very low. I have looked at it, and it has been placed in the fleet management instead of other expenses. So it is still within the operational plan, but it's not in other expenses now. So that's why there's a substantial change there. We're just not registering our vehicles.
I thought that looked like a good idea.
So
I hope that helps. Yeah.
So I know we've consolidated the administration. You've explained that. So
Yes.
that's meant a doubling of that figure just by the consolidation.
It has, yes. And it includes things like the community newsletter as well. So that was in a different area, and we've brought it into administration now under printing and postage. So that's a substantial increase there.
And with the advertising,
Yep.
does that mean that was dispersed across different departments and that's now been
That's
consolidated?
correct, yes.
And we expect to spend 117,000?
Well, we're hoping that we don't need to, but yes, for example, when we do the community consultation, there's cost involved in the advertising of that. When we advertise for new positions, there is costs involved.
Oh, so it
in that.
includes employee. I would have
Includes
thought that
employee,
it
yes.
would have been under employee costs. And
No, that advertising does include that.
the consultants heritage, the heritage committee, I thought we'd had quite a few consultants the last few years, so I'm surprised that's up to double plus.
I'll have to
I'll have to
refer
ask the Heritage
to General
Committee.
Manager about that, or the heritage.
Through the chair, certainly in the heritage consultant, we have our heritage architect that comes in and supports the heritage committee. Currently, it's funded through a 1 for 2, or for every dollar we put in, they put in a number of dollars, and we don't have the understanding or that commitment from EOH at this point in time, or the heritage office, that they'll continue to do that. So we have to basically cater for the whole lot, and then look at reducing that through a subsidy if that was offered.
We put a note to the account with assumptions. I'm just wondering if it should be assumption.
I didn't, but I will put it
I
in
think
as
it
part
should
of
be
the
an
community
assumption.
consultation.
Yeah, I think it should be an assumption that we are, the basis of that is on the basis that normally we get a one-for-one contribution. We're uncertain as to whether that's continuing. If there is a one-for-one contributor, that would reduce it or something like that. effect.
But equally, we see the benefit in having that outside consultant coming in.
I don't think anyone's arguing.
No, I'm just saying that we still recognise it.
So the council assistance at 356 assistance, we've currently got
85.
85,000, but we're looking at 100,000 cash contribution. That doesn't seem to make sense.
So we have included the 100,000, depending on how the decision goes tonight in confidential about what you intend to award. Last year was 113,000. We didn't think it was appropriate to take it all the way back to 85 in case council wanted to, as they normally do, have some spare funds in that account for late applications. And that's why we've left it at 100,000.
So if we decide when going through, and I'll be careful with what I say, section 356 tonight, that it is the figure currently requested or a lesser amount, will that be reflected in this draft when it goes out to public comment? As per, you know, we're going to amend the, we're going to put a new assumption in relation to, we've just discussed the heritage consultants. So if we come up with a lower figure, then that could also be reflected in this cash amount here.
No, it won't be reflected in this cash amount because I won't be changing this forecast of the figures, but I'm happy to talk about it in the assumptions, and it will be amended when it comes back in June for adoption.
Can I add that also through consultation processes that we may introduce that at that point in time as well?
Well, I just think the community should be aware of modern wise where we're going with this more accurately than because we'll have a more accurate reflection once we've considered in confidential where we are.
And through the chair, that's where it's difficult for us when you're looking at a draft for an exhibition now, and then considering other things in a confidential nature.
I understand that, but as we're putting another recommendation is it too much to make that figure actually reflect where we end up later this evening?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I just think it's better to have it where we have the information more accurate. Okay.
Just through the chair, sorry, Councillor McKibben, just being mindful that it will change the bottom line as well.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. So understand the IT hardware. Other council expenses, sorry, which is that gone from 34 to 90. Is that as a result of the election or what?
My apologies, I did miss that one. That's actually a result as the requirement by the Office of Local Government that all new councillors undertake professional development training. So that's training.
Which will include a new councillor induction, all the things that relate to becoming a councillor.
Right. Fully understand the debt collection, and I think that's a great result there. Insurance is obviously it's going to increase slightly because of the bushfires, because premiums are going up. IT hardware, understand that. IT software. The only thing with the IT hardware, well, it may be that some councillors decide not to take a new computer of their own volition because they've already got enough computers to cope with rather than have another one.
But that's that
But
you
that-
can't.
That's-
You can't.
No, you can't
Right,
not
for
budget
this
for that. I
document.
understand that. So let's leave that one. Subscriptions and memberships. We really paid 273,000 for subscriptions and memberships.
Yeah, this
What's
also
that? Local government.
local government, New South Wales, the
JO.
JO.
Yeah.
So they're all included.
Country
in those.
mayors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing.
So we've brought all those together.
Is there any way of? I know there's core ones, but is there any way of rationalising any of those? Because it's a large sum of money.
We have tried to do that at this point in time, but memberships for the different organisations, they mount up when you put them all together. So
They certainly do.
yeah.
All right, I think that's on the page. On page 4, under the town improvement levy expenditures. And the community hub fit out. So we're actually budgeting 60,000 for fit out. So that, I mean, I have requested information as to what the fit out will cost. And on a previous occasion, and as a notice of motion, it's been brought back to us when we're looking at the total design, etc. So that's now what we're budgeting for.
Through the chair.
That's not the case.
Not at all. As part of this operational plan, it's envisaged that 568,000 will be collected from TI, and it will be council who make the determination on how they spend that $568,000. If you look at those projects, which are proposed projects, they're not confirmed projects, there are a number and they add up to a lot more than $568,000. They're just a number of projects from council staff and operations that we believe would fit into this. We are also expecting, as part of the notification and the advertising of this document, that others may come in as part of a deliberation that council needs to consider. These are purely potential projects that you could consider as part of the Town Improvement Fund. If the hub fit out wasn't one of those, you simply get rid of it.
Where did the figure of 60 come from?
The 60 came because, as part of council's ongoing development through the library funds that they get from state libraries, that was a year's worth of that.
That was a figure
It was
not pulled out of the air, but based on state library recommendations or state library funding.
So is that starting from ab initio, i.e. starting from a blank slate, or is that an enhancement on any furniture we've currently got? I'm just not.
it would enhance the finish. It gives you another 60,000 for the
And that's fit out, I'm assuming. That means chairs, tables, curtains, and computers.
Computers. Yeah,
Yeah.
technology. Could you suppose some extra additional funding for this?
And then if I could, the next one, the Apex Park toilet block replacement. I haven't actually been in there lately. Is it to a state that it absolutely needs replacing, pushing down and putting up?
Yeah, through the chair, it was a discussion some time back with the council in relation to the, I suppose, the dilapidated state of that particular block and being outdated for how many visitors to Oberon actually do visit it. And consideration has been given, I suppose, through the town improvement. Should council wish to knock down and rebuild a new type facility there. So that's on that basis.
So how many users does it have?
I don't have the exact count, but it does get quite some substantial use on my understanding from the visitors' information that was discussed. I don't have that actual figures before me at the minute, but yeah, it does get substantial use.
And following on from a discussion. Oh, sorry, if I could go back. So the shared pedestrian cycle and footpath construction, have we a plan where that's envisaged to go?
Through the chair, it formed part of our Oberon pedestrian access mobility plan, and it'd be a continuation of that, yes.
Right. Following on from a discussion earlier this evening, should we be putting on there a figure for undergrounding power from Raleigh Street to Oberon Street?
More than happy to include the project as part of a town improvement option for council to consider.
Figure came to, what was it, 300,000?
It was 300,000.
got to be more.
More than that.
Through the chair, as part of that quote, I think we also worked around if you did all three together, there'd be some savings in doing or not doing some of the stuff. It'd be an indicative
All right.
Number.
300,000.
but I would suspect it would be around that number. More than happy for Chris to go and
Well, I think
ask
we
for a revised
should
quote.
it should be put in there on the basis that we may proceed with it. So the community should be aware and they should be allowed to make comment on it. Yes, no, it's not worth it.
Happy to have it included as one of the list of projects.
I mean, we could have it split into two is construction to the, but I
But
think.
this
that's
can be
too-
discussed
Yeah.
when we make this decision in June.
Yes,
This is just a draft with some suggestions on it.
but I think people should know that we're considering
Considering
it.
it, absolutely agree.
And it should be in there with a figure and it's got a big figure.
And I think we've agreed that it will go in.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm not sure if there's anything else we should be looking at.
Okay. Councillor Capel, did you want to say something?
That was the
only-
major things. at this
Only,
stage.
Madam Mayor, that this basically is a wish list and it's already been explained that
It is
we'll
a
be
wish
making the
list.
decision at a later date. And so I don't think we need to go through it with a fine tooth comb now.
Councillor McKechnie?
Oh, I agree with Councillor Capel, but I struggle to find how the community hub fit out can come under town improvement. And I don't think it should go out on that list in the draft like that. I think it should be taken off. I can't understand, and I can't work out the town improvements for the two, for argument's sake, 2,500, the benefit of 2,500 ratepayers that live in town or in the town manager, 2,500 that live outside. You know, how can that, you know, the people that live outside the town boundary are going to use, you would assume that they'll use some of that building, otherwise we wouldn't be looking at having it. So I just struggle with it, you know, that being fitting in the town improvement criteria. You know, I think, I just don't think it should be in there to go out in the draft document.
Through the chair, more than happy to have it removed if council are of the opinion that they don't want it in there. It's as easy as that.
Well, I support what Councillor McKechnie says. When you have a profile of the people that put in for the hub and all the rest, the majority of those people that put in for the hub don't pay town improvement funds. Went through some of the list and you break it down and they don't. You know,
Could say the same for the
Sorry.
common.
Put in for, I don't
What do you
understand.
mean?
Just
Survey.
information, what do you mean?
Well,
Councillor, you know.
they wanted the hub to go ahead and all the rest, but they don't contribute to the TI fund. Most of the submissions that we receive from the people don't contribute to it.
Well, what's your feel, council? Do you want it in or out?
If we need that money later on, where can we pull it from? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, it's a wish list. It's not, we're not here discussing the hub as such. We're discussing this list of suggested projects, and if you don't want that to go out as a suggested project, we'll pull it.
But
It's
you're
not,
saying that this wish list of the $60,000 comes out of TI. There must be other funds. The
probably
60,
would be. If we got to that stage where we needed that money,
well, we need
we
to
would then
highlight where it can be pulled from as
but
well.
we don't know that we need it yet.
We'll
Well,
take
The
it.
60,000
councillor.
is an enhancement. Oh, I think I indicated to that. I'm more than happy to take it out. If council's of the opinion not to have it, we'll take it out.
And
It
it-
fits within the criteria. It's part of the provision. If council aren't comfortable with having that as part of the number of projects in TI, we're happy to remove it.
The mayor,
Councillor Downey?
obviously, town improvements are a hot issue at the moment. Over my time, it appears if the wind's blowing one way, town improvement, people from outside town do use the assets, and if the wind's blowing the other way, then they don't. I'm just saying that there's a grey area that shifts, but I think for the sake, until we sit down and thrash out the town improvement issue amongst ourselves, to come to a conclusion that we represent to the public as a group, then I think for convenience, we just take this out until we've dealt with the issue. Because that's the issue behind here. It's not 60,000, it's not the community hub. It's this political push at the moment about town improvement. That's why we're stumbling around. So let's avoid it. Let's just take it out and discuss that issue separately.
Thank you, Councillor Connor.
Madam Mayor, I disagree, actually. I think we should leave it in there so that people can make a submission on it. It's simply this, noting that this is not a decision matrix. This is simply a series of projects which may or may not be appropriate for the Town Improvement Fund in the next financial year. So let's leave it there. Let's leave them all there. Make it clear that the council's made no decision at all on any of these projects, but we will make a decision after the consultation period and at an appropriate time in council. And there'll be a resolution behind that. And I think pulling things out at the moment actually limits the discussion in the consultation period.
Okay, councillors, what's the feel of the mayor? We'll go with the show of hands. In.
Leave it in.
I think that's got it. Thank you. Any other comments on the plan, councillors?
Madam Mayor, just through you to the Corporate Services Director, can you give us a few words on why employee benefits and on costs have gone down so dramatically in 21-22, and also the depreciation and amortization has gone up quite dramatically.
Yes, through the chair, through the mayor. Basically, we've had quite a few, well, not quite a few, but we've had some staff who have been long-term employees retire this year. And hence, we're not expecting we don't need to maintain as high a level. So that's why we've reduced it. And regarding the depreciation, it's gone up because all the new infrastructure and grants that we've been working on, we've got $1.7 million increase of depreciation.
Which is substantial. Mr. McCarthy.
What we discussed with Andrew McGibbon, Councillor McGibbon on 3, wouldn't it be better for us to have a list to show us what was pulled together to change these numbers? Like if you were reading this as an accountant and you read some of these subscriptions and membership, it's gone from 50,000 to 275. So shouldn't we have a detailed list of what was pulled together that come up with these figures?
It's an enormous job. What do you imagine?
Well,
No, we can do that.
We can do that on that, just that one?
I wouldn't like to do it on all.
No.
But I think,
Significant ones.
I think on significant ones, I agree with Councillor McCarthy, we should have I know, I'm not saying
I know what you're saying.
detailed,
Yeah.
but the
Maybe
kind of
general
explanations the Director of Corporate Services gave us a little earlier, I think is appropriate.
So
because-
as a note,
as a note.
as a total.
Yeah.
This
And-
subscriptions.
And maybe where we have it on the summary page, because all these people look at the summary page first,
Yeah.
is if we can have the note number, have the notes numbered,
Yeah.
and say, see note 4, see note 5, see note
Yeah.
6, see note 7,
Okay.
because
Sure.
that's going to stop a lot of questions, because we know people look and they'll see the big number increase. But if you've got C note 1, they go straight to that note. So if we could number our notes,
Sure.
that'll make a hell of a difference.
Are you happy with that, Councillor McCarthy?
yeah, and the same on page 15, 16, this mightn't be relevant, but say Four Ridge Road, Dixon Country Roads, the bridge, 358,000. That's fine when you're reading that and you think, hang on, rates and that. But we should have how much the council is putting into that in a separate column.
Well, I think it's just
What page are you on? Councillor?
15.
5 or 16.
Oh, 5.
Oh,
Oh, it's the same on page 19.
I think,
sorry, I thought you were looking
I
at.
think
page
again, it is
15.
explained somewhere, but a reference to the note or the would be good. I know it's explained that we've got a grant for Swallows Nest Road Bridge and for Bull Ridge Road replacement, and they've come under grants, but again, just say C note 4.
So I can see where you're going, Councillor McCarthy. So you'd like
Yep.
to see what the council contribution is against that grant?
Well, I'd rather see a column. So you got the gross, but you have the grant, council contribution and the total.
Okay.
Yep.
No problem. I don't think that's a problem, is it, councillor? Anything else, councillor?
There probably is, because I'll keep going. But yeah,
Councillor McKibben?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, waste charges. Probably did find it before.
The fees and charges?
Yes, under fees and charges.
Yeah, nice.
I think at some earlier stage, and I'm not sure if it's part of the report which to come back to council, that the general manager has indicated. We were going to look at how our waste charges compared to surrounding councils.
Page 18 of course.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. How
Page 18 on attachment 2, councillors.
how our rubbish charges, in particular for commercial type waste, etc., compared with surrounding councils, and whether we were in line with, below or above, or where we were with that.
It will come back.
It will come back, and so we won't have an opportunity this time to review it in light of that report. We'll have to do it in 22, 23.
No. So if the report comes back that outlines some deficiencies in funding, council will then have the
Or charges.
opportunity to change those. There is a process that council need to go, but you can do that separate to a endorsement. You won't have to wait 12 months for that to occur.
Okay, I'm happy with that, but any idea, is that part of the report? I think, was it May? I can't remember.
No, there's 2 coming back in May. It'll probably be around the June when we bring it back. So it might even be in line with the finalisation of this point.
Okay, it'd be good if it was.
It would be, but I'm not going to promise anything just yet.
The other, sorry, Madam Mayor, the other matter I raise is page 16 of attachment A.
One.
Attachment 4, sorry, attachment 4 of page 16 of it, which is the map of the Forestry Corporation haulage volume estimate map.
What page was that, councillor? Sorry.
16.
16.
Which I know we've probably seen before, but I did have some problem in getting this enlarged to be able to take a look at it. On wondering whether our constituents might have a similar problem. I'm not sure how we better present it, but I'm sure there'll be some interest, but it's very hard to work out which roads are actually.
We have a couple of copies of that at our community consultation sessions. Should anybody be worried? about
Maybe
that?
A, B, was it A3, but big as B4, isn't it?
A3.
Or we can blow, I think it'd be good to be able to blow it up on the screen if, so, because people, I think, would be asking about that, especially in light of the grants we've had for Burriga Road, Arkston Road, Campbell's River Road, etc.
Remembering that this is a heat map, so it's an indicative map, but what it does show is that there is a significant amount of trucks going to use our local roads over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's why I think it's going to be of interest. Yeah. So I think we've got to be prepared to be able to display it properly. And could I suggest, it's on public exhibition, that we somehow manage to show this in a better, I don't know how we do it. Leave that to you. Just do it.
Thank you,
Well, I'm just
councillor.
suggesting it be done.
Yep.
Any other comments,
Thank
councillor?
you, councillor.
Councillor Jones?
thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll return to the report. Or we wander through the other. Just a number of points on page 15. Right at the bottom, just the benchmark there. Own source revenue ratio. It has understandably taken a little bit of a dive, but I would expect that is a common occurrence in the government's approach to regional development.
It is, and
Across a
it's a
broad
very
area.
common occurrence at this point in time through all councils.
I just did want to make that point. At the top of page 15, people have been saying that the IT hardware budget's going from $50,000 to $115,000 with new councils might get computers. You'll notice at the top of page 15, second line, computer hardware and setup for councillors is in fact budgeted to increase from 6 to 11,000. It's only a $5,000 increase from potential new hardware to computers rather than the other fantastic figures. I know there's other issues in there, but that was
Yeah.
the example that.
No, through the chair, I actually also said that it was, there was hardware in there for the new EMS, for the outdoor staff to be able to operate in the field.
I do appreciate that.
Through
Oh.
the chair, can I just confirm this the table relates to the effect that COVID has had. So it is setting up councillors remotely, and that's where the cost is.
Certainly.
It is not the
It's
total
nothing to do
cost.
with the hardware.
Nothing to do with hardware.
So that is
So
to
the
do with
table
the
on page
COVID.
15.
Yeah, look at the heading on
14
page
and
14,
15.
COVID-19.
COVID implication, I appreciate that.
So it's the, we're anticipating that if that happens again, or there is an outbreak of COVID, we would need to do something. That's why we're giving it a value as we move across the organisation.
My jumping assumption. I keep, the forecast deficit was about $40,000. And then we say, but that's okay, because we've got, it's the old depreciation bogeyman, isn't it? We've got $1.7 million worth of depreciation.
Additional
depreciation.
Additional. But the $40,000 is real money,
Hmm.
and 1.7 million of depreciation is just an allowance.
It's all
Yeah,
taken into
it's all
consideration.
As part of an overall. approach.
I'd
You're
have the
not gonna win that
$40,000
argument, I'm
real
sorry.
money than that. Actually dollars. Page 16. I just, again, looking at the table general rates, I just like looking at that and comparing the numbers, and I do argue, particularly with this discussion about town improvement and community facilities, etc. I do consider to suggest council looks in the long term to increasing their rural residential rate. I just feel that's a growth area in our. I know there's certain formulas, but I think it's a growth area in our revenue base. Page 17. Am I reading this right? That service and use residential and industrial wastewater sewage charges,
That one's right.
5% CPI?
It was an error. We initially did considered CPI, and then we ended up with 5%, and that was an error. We forgot to take CPI out.
So
word
you're
CPI.
suggesting it is 5%?
It's 5%.
Why 5%? We've had those increases in water charges of 3 years at 5 or 10%.
Well, they were, then they level last year, I think.
And
They
then,
haven't been increased for
It's been CPI for 3 years.
okay. Why do we need a 5% increase?
Because it needs to be a sustainable.
But I understand it's got to be balanced.
both your sewer and water funds need to be sustainable for the critical
Are
infrastructure.
we that far out that we needed a 5% increase in sewer? Was not sewer a balanced budget for the last few years?
It is, but you're planning on doing a new STP.
I just think all the other charges will increase at 0.9.
Yeah.
Just, and I know sewer needs to be. I just think that's a large one. Residential, page 18. Residential water service charges. It's not being a town resident. I just so for a resident, they've got 372.30 plus 667.90 plus 315 per kilolitre. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then their sewer charge is equal to their water consumption. That will increase by 5%. Page 20.
Through the chair, I'd be more than happy to bring back other areas rates if council was of that mind as well. If you think
Deal
that
with
it's
comment.
expensive.
Deal with comment in the community. Definitely. Page 20. Just the 356 assistants. We're going to revisit that, I gather. I think we should increase that allowance generously. We'll come back to it. Again, the draft fees and charges, note there is 0.9 and 5% on sewer. I don't think matches it. And I draw your attention to the attachment. Page 5 of 16, the operational plan assumptions.
5, councillor. Page 5, councillor.
5 of 16, yeah.
5 and 16, yep.
Right down the bottom, borrowing costs. A number of times it's mentioned will sewer treatment will be fully grant funded. Progress report on that, because there's a big assumption we've had some progress in application, population projections, etc., etc. We've always had the idea, and it's mentioned in here, that we could go fully funded, or if necessary, we might find an alternative. Is this still a realistic assumption that we'll be fully funded on this grant?
Happy to discuss in confidential, council.
Okay, that's good. Source revenue. A couple of others. I have quite a few, Madam Mayor, so maybe I will just put them on a piece of paper.
Would be great.
Not a worry. Thank you.
Any other comments on this one, councillor? One more, councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a couple actually, but they all deal with the same area. Pages 18
Which report, councillor?
of the main report, Madam Mayor, of the attachments. So I don't think under the domestic waste management charges, the 2% CPI, again, the CPI should be taken out.
That's correct.
And in the next one, non-domestic waste management charge, 2% again, sorry. That's correct. Could you, it may be through to the technical services director, could you explain the expenditure of 70,000 on the two-way radio system and the 10,000 on the store upgrade and 10,000 on the record shed, please?
Through the chair, I can give you an insight to item 1, which is the two-way radio system. We currently have an outdated system in terms of two-way radio capability. It's going to I suppose, an upgraded radio system that has better clarity, capability, working off again 2 separate repeater stations. So there is a substantial upgrade there, but also with that would be handsets in vehicles and also in-field handsets that could be as part of the whole upgrade. Providing better capability for
Sorry,
council work.
includes upgrade of 2 repeater stations.
Correct.
Okay, it just seems a lot of money for a two-way radio system, but I suppose it includes repeater stations. That may be an explanation to it. Seems I was just assuming it was a fit out of the handsets, etc., in vehicles that are existing replacement, but it's not. So you're happy that 70,000 is appropriate for it?
Yes, through the chair, we've done some scoping with companies to arrive at a budget figure. So yes, that is where that would lie in that order of $70,000.
And what's envisaged with the store upgrade? Third last item from the bottom and the record shed.
Yep, through the chair. So we are working on improving the facilities at the store, new shelving, scanning equipment so that we can scan items in and out. That's the start of that.
And the record shed?
So I'll take that one if you want. So the record shed previously, with the amount of paper that we're accumulating, you need to store that. We were looking at putting a new shed on within the depot to in fact cater for that. We are moving away from that, I believe, at this point in time, into a more documented electronic way of dealing with that. The director of planning and development has just secured $50,000 to, in fact, enhance our e-planning portal. And it was envisaged that this may be an opportunity to, in fact, reduce the need for a shed and have a buy-in from us to develop that digital record rather than housing a physical record.
That was my question. Yeah.
Previously, that was $30,000, and we've reduced it to 10 to try and tie into that grant.
So do we really need it at all if we proper digitize and save our materials and also future? That's the question.
So the record shed, or the records housing, probably is a better word than a record shed. It is not a physical shed. It's using that was a physical
Put it on the
shed
cloud.
in a housing, yes, which is
Put it
cloud.
in a secure cloud.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Okay.
So in
if
fact,
that
it was
is-
one of the savings that we've made.
okay. So
the
is
cloud
it,
is a shed.
is it an appropriate description now?
We'll amend that.
Yeah, we could amend that.
If we could amend that, I think
We've left it like that because it's in fact one of the savings that we found during trying to find $1.7 million, to be honest. So
maybe more record storage would be more appropriate.
Yep.
Because that then leaves it open.
Is that it, Councillor?
Well, leaves that element, so we have a look at my crosses. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's it.
Any other comments, councillors, before I put this recommendation?
That's one other thing, just checking myself. With patients, just on index, because the workforce management plan was really interesting, but attachment 6, building asset management plan.
through the chair, these are notes. These are documents to assist, not anything that we'll be
You're not.
that we'll be adopting.
For our purposes, though, just on page 18. Third last paragraph. Current plan renewal budget of 52,400 for 2018-19 will continue to be available over the next 10 years. That's still an accurate
Attachment
sentence.
6, councillors.
Attachment 6. Attachment 6, page 8. Is that still an accurate sentence?
Yep.
Thank you.
Putting recommendation in 8 parts, councillors, all in favour? Thank you. Page 22, councillors, item 0503, Oberon Common Adventure Playground Shade Structures. There is, before I put this recommendation, in line 2 or note 2 there, that should read the currently allocated Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund, not the Town Improvement Fund. If you could just make that adjustment. So it's council transfer 34,714 from the currently allocated Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund to complete the shade sale, etc. So if you could make that adjustment before I ask for a mover of the recommendation. And the recommendation is that council elect to proceed with option 2 of the Ellis and Sons quotation in order to deliver this project prior to the 30th of June 2021. That council transfer 34,714 from the currently allocated Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund to complete the shade sale project at a total combined value of $113,550. $113,550. The remover, please. Councillor Capel, thank you. And Councillor Darling, thank you. Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, this is a huge amount of money. And many of us will say in the good old days, we didn't need shades over our tin slippery dips. But nowadays, this is a necessity. We have to do it. And it is a huge amount of money, but it's just something that we have to accept, and it's something that we have to do. Yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Donny.
I'm happy to support councillor Campbell's comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While I support the shade cloth and the necessity for it, I'm just not certain that we shouldn't be proceeding with option one. I'm uncertain as to why we need the climbing ropes covered. We are covering 80% of the playground. I've seen a number of other playgrounds where the climbing rope areas are not covered. I don't think we would be putting ourselves in an adverse legal position if we have 80% of the area covered. I just think it's increasing the expense quite a lot by doing it. We've already we obviously allocated 100,000 from the Drought Communities Fund for the provision of the shade cloths, and now it appears that we've under budgeted on the basis that it's well and truly covered with Black Springs, but we haven't covered fully the common. If we were to go with option one, I think we'd only be having to reallocate roughly 5,500 to 6,000 from the town improvement. From the Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund to this, rather than a considerably amount more, 34,740. So that's my view. But I would listen to others, and if there's support, I would propose an amendment.
It's my personal view. If you're going to cover some, why should the climbing ropes not be covered? What's the children are still exposed to the same amount of UV, whether they're on the climbing ropes or the mouse or the swings.
If they're playing in the park, they're also.
Well, they are.
If they're playing in the park, not in the playground, they're also exposed. You're going to cover the whole playground?
No, but if you
The whole
don't,
play area,
if
the
you
whole
take-
common?
if you're taking that line, why are we doing it at all? Is we required to do it?
We're
Recommended that we don't do it.
Recommended, it's not required.
It's definitely recommended.
And we are covering 80% of it.
That's okay. If you're proposing amendment, I'm happy to take that.
Well, I'll just see if I've got.
I'll support him if he's going to put an amendment up. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I understand.
We just don't go down and have a jail that they've got to play in this ground. The kids are allowed to run over to the other two facilities there with the barbecue is. So we're not locking them up under the shade. So
Right.
I think there's scope that we don't have to go to this extremity.
Your amendment, then,
Well,
Councillor
I propose an amendment as follows. Recommendation 1 would read that council like to proceed with option 1. Provide 5 separate shades covering 80% of the adventure playground, leaving the climbing ropes uncovered. Option 2 will read, I haven't done the figures myself, but it's council transfer. I think it would be about 5,000 and something from the town Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund to complete the shade sale project as set out in recommendation 1, and a total combined value of 84,090 bracket excluding GST bracket. Right, you too. So let's see.
and was seconded by Councillor McCarthy.
Yes.
So 836. $5,204
Plus the vandals, councillor.
plus the which
Vandal
So-
proofing.
on the vandal proof.
But you would only need 3.6 rather than 4.9.
Yeah.
Triple eight.
There's just a figure, 8884. We've got a second now.
The total would be. Sorry, councillor, just stick with me for a second.
Sorry, the additional options,
87.
the additional options do include the shade structures. Says it the second one.
87. So additional options are for spikes, which we recommend. Approved.
Have we got the figure there?
Why do we need premium spikes?
The premium vandals.
Okay, councillor, is this your
Yes.
happy, and you're happy with,
Yes, Madam Mayor, I
amendment?
support it.
Yep.
Look, kids need vitamin B on their skin, don't they? And
only
We-
5 minutes a day, councillor?
we keep covering them up. That might be enough time to get them.
I'm speaking against the amendment. You will note on page 23 that the Common Working Party reviewed both options at length at their last meeting and recommended option 2. And we also need to take into account the protection of our asset from the sun as well. There, that's just a minor, to me, a minor advantage of it. But I'm speaking against the recommendation because I think it should all be covered. Any other comment on this one, councillors? Councillor Capel.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'd like to speak against the amendment for the motion. And you beat me to the punch there about the recommendation of the Common Working Party. But council does have a duty of care to everybody that uses the facilities there. And I think it would only be a very short matter of time before we came under pressure from carers of children who were using the playground facility there and about why we only had part of it covered. I think the recommendation is that the playgrounds be covered, and I accept that children are not fenced in there and that they're free to come and go. But I think the time that they're using those facilities, we, as I say, have a duty of care to look after them. And I think we need to bite the bullet and do it.
Councillor, any other comments, councillors? No other comments. I'm going to then put the amendment. The council will elect to proceed with option 1 of the Ellis and Sons quotation in order to deliver this project prior to June 30, 2021. Excuse me. The council transfer $8,884 from the currently allocated Oberon Common Town Improvement Fund to complete the shade sale project at a total combined value of $87,720 exclusive of GST. All in favour of the amendment? 3, all against the amendment? The amendment's lost. We now go back to the original motion. I'm going to put the original recommendation. All in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you.
D. D.
Page 43, councillors, item 0504, modified development application 10202051.2, shed, patio cover and carport, and remove 3 existing sheds and carport. The recommendation is that council vary part C.5.5 of the building height plan and part C6.4 carports and garages of its current DCP 2001 associated to modify development application 102020.51.2 for construction of a shed, patio cover and carport at lot 13 in DP 2364, section D, being known as 10 Springfield Street, Oberon, that a division be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McCarthy. And a seconder, please. Councillor Kelly, thank you. Wish to speak to this, Councillor McCarthy?
It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Straightforward, and no objections have been lodged.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Gibbon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Director of Planning and Development. I was a little bit confused, I have to say. I looked at it several times. As in particular, page 46. Trying to work out where the existing structures are and where the new carport and garage is to go on the site. Is it necessary for the existing 3 sheds and carport, and I think it is for the carport, but I'm not sure about the 3 existing sheds, to be demolished before this building work can actually be undertaken?
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair. I think the requirement for the demolition is to bring the square metre rate or the overall square meterage of the sheds down to closer to the DCP requirement.
I understand that. But there's no recommendation or nothing to say or a compulsory order to say that these 3 existing sheds and carport have to be demolished as a precursor to any construction commencing. And my concern is that we may need it through a 3rd recommendation, that the 3 existing structures and the carport be demolished before construction commences, because I'm not sure from the plan on page 46, I can't actually, I'm having, with the photograph, it's on page 44, the plan on page 46, I'm actually not certain. I can see the carport on the photograph at the bottom of page 44. I'm actually not, and the photograph above it is not really clear on where the existing sheds to go. And then I've got the map on 46. My concern is that the construction occurs and some or other of the existing sheds remain without a specific requirement that these have to be demolished before construction commences, or no development approvals given, or something that occurs. You enlighten me to the contrary, please.
I think, Councillor, through the chair, Councillor, we would ensure that those sheds are demolished prior to the issue of an occupation suit, finalisation of the application, so we wouldn't undertake that process until those sheds are removed.
All right, as long as it's an absolute requirement of
Yes,
the development
would be, Councillor, through the chair.
application, because it's it actually doesn't reference that in the recommendation.
Through the chair, yes. So it's a requirement of council acting as the certifier when we issue the construction certificate and then occupation certificate, to ensure that compliance with the development consent is achieved.
Okay, it's just that the whole development consent, I don't think it's referenced here. We don't have the wording of that. Okay. I think the only reference is in the summary at the top. Is that right?
Through the chair, you're being asked to sign off on the
The
removal,
variation.
the variation of the DCP, not the application.
Right, yeah. Okay. All right, well, if that's the case, I'm happy with it. I just wanted to make clear, sure that that was the situation, because I've seen people skirt around things like this before.
Councillor, any other comments? Councillor? Recommendation or in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 56, councillors. Item 6, closed session confidential reports. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10A bracket 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in part of the meeting closed to the media and public. I'd like to thank the members of the public for joining us this evening on the Zoom meeting. I now call for a councillor to move us into closed session, Councillor McKibben, and a second to Councillor McKechnie. All in favour? Carried, thank you.
Can I just have a clarification before?